There are a number of verbs in French that have irregular past participles, meaning they don't follow the usual pattern of I accent aigu for ER verbs, or an I for IR verbs, or a U on the end for RE verbs. Instead, they have their own, usually short past participles that we need to memorize because they're in a lot of common verbs that we use, like avoir or être or prendre. So let's look at these irregular examples. A good number of past participles that are irregular and in the letter U, almost like an RE verb. Many of these are very short. For example, avoir becomes eu. J'ai eu une bonne idée. I had a good idea. Boire becomes bu for drank. Il a bu du coca. He drank some coke. Connaître, to know, to be familiar with, becomes connu. Elle a connu mon ami. She knew my friend. Courir, to run, becomes couru. Devoir, to have to, becomes dû. J'ai dû aller au travail. I had to go to work. Notice how this dû has an accent circonflexe, and that's just so that you know that it's a different form of dû and not dû like faire du sport. Lire becomes lu for read. Pouvoir becomes pu. Je n'ai pas pu finir les devoirs. I couldn't. I was not able to finish my homework. Recevoir, to receive, becomes reçu. Savoir, to know, becomes su. Tenir, to hold, becomes tenu. Voir, to see, becomes vu. And vouloir, to want, becomes voulu. Let's say these past participles one time. Eu, bu, connu, couru, dû, lu, pu, reçu, su, tenu, vu, and voulu. These are examples of some of the verbs that have use on the end in the past participle form. This is not all of the verbs that do that, just some common ones that we'll be using. Some verbs end in is instead for the past participle. For example, mettre, to put, becomes mis. Il a mis son chapeau. He put his hat on. Prendre, to take, becomes pris. Tu as pris le train? A lot of people think that prendre looks like an RE verb, so a common mistake I see is students writing prendu, but the past participle is actually pris. That means that other forms of the verb prendre, like comprendre, to understand, also do the same thing. Compris. Je n'ai pas compris la question. I did not understand the question. There are a couple of verbs that end in it for the past participle. For example, dire becomes dit. Écrire becomes écrit. Elle a dit la vérité. She told the truth. Vous avez écrit un roman. You wrote a book. These are not all of the examples. These are just ones we'll be using. And then, of course, there are irregular past participles that are just irregular. For example, être becomes été, just like the word for summer in French. So, elle a été une bonne amie. She was a good friend. Faire, the past participle is fait. J'ai fait du jogging hier. I did jogging yesterday. So here is our whole list of ones that we'll be studying in class. There are more than this list, but these 19 irregular past participles are the ones we'll be working with currently. Avoir becomes eu. Boire becomes pu. Connaître becomes connu. Courir, couru. Devoir, dû. Lire, lu. Pouvoir, pu. Recevoir, reçu. Savoir, su. Tenir, tenu. Voir, vu. Vouloir, voulu. Mettre, mis. Prendre, pris. Comprendre, compris. Dire, dit. Écrire, écrit. Être, été. Faire becomes fait. Oops, F-A-I-T. Fait. Désolé. Let's say them one time. Eu, bu, connu, couru, dû, lu, pu, reçu. This little cédille en reçu keeps the C sound soft. If you forget that accent mark, it would be pronounced recu, and it would be incorrect. Su, tenu, vu, voulu, mis, pris, compris, dit, écrit, été, and faire should be fait, F-A-I-T. Oops. Here is a longer list. This still isn't all of them. I'll be sharing this list with you all. The yellow ones are the ones that we'll be learning for class, but a lot of the other ones are ones that we'll use frequently. For example, croire, to believe, or suivre, to follow. A little bit more information about past participles. The past participle alone is not how you form the passé composé. It is composed of two parts, so you need avoir or être as your helping verb first. The past participle cannot work on its own. For example, you won't say je fais les devoirs for I did homework. I know in English we say just one word, did, but in French you have to say it as if it's I have done the homework. J'ai fait. You can, however, use the past participle all by itself sometimes to work like an adjective. So les fleurs mortes. Morte wasn't on our list, and that is because it doesn't use avoir, so we'll be learning about morte soon. It means dead, and it could be used like an adjective. Notice how it has a feminine plural ending to agree with les fleurs. La porte ouverte. Ouverte was on our list on the previous page. We will need to know it. Ouverte, feminine, will match la porte to say the door is open, the open door. The past participle can also be useful for the passive voice. The passive voice is when there is not a subject that is known or you don't want to say what the subject is, who did the action. For example, le message est reçu. The message is received. We don't know by whom, but it was received. La femme est connue. The woman is known. This is the passive voice, and you use the past participle with an ending to make it agree. It works almost like an adjective here. On va pratiquer. Let's practice with what we've learned so far.